Welcome back to the Brotagonists podcast. I'm your bro host, Carter.
And I am your bro host, Mason, wearing my Glonir Björsekir t-shirt today because we are going back to the Bloodsworn trilogy. Today we'll be reviewing The Hunger of the Gods in our Protagonist book breakdown. And I'm just so excited to dive into that book. And after that, we will go into a Protagonist IQ test where I will be giving Carter questions today about specifically The Hunger of the Gods and The Shadow of the Gods, the first two books. After that, we'll do a game of Guess Who with characters from the Bloodsworn trilogy. After that, we will go into our Watchtower review, which will include our Vikings show recommendations, as this is a Viking fantasy that we're diving into today. And before we get too much into that, Carter, what are you reading?
Okay, this week I've read the first three Dungeon Crawler books.
The first three?
The first three Dungeon Crawler Carl books.
Are they pretty short, or are you just grinding away?
I have been grinding, and the first three are not that long. They're not that long at all, but I have developed an addiction, apparently, and they're super good. 1 and 2 just made me want to read the third one immediately. They're so unique. I've never read an RPG before, and I don't know, I might have to try out a couple more because I really enjoy it.
It's not too often you get hooked like this into a book series where you're just reading them all the time, nonstop, not taking any breaks. Where is this kind of ranking for you compared to the other book series that we obsess about, like Red Rising, Mistborn, Sun Eater?
Well, it's hard to rank because it is so different. Like, it's so hard to compare it against anything I have read.
But I guess like your enjoyment level, where is it?
No, in enjoyment, it's so fun. So basically, aliens take over Earth and make the remaining humans on Earth like participate in basically a game show for all the alien races. And these people, they're called dungeon crawlers. And so Carl goes into the dungeon with his cat, and then his cat develops the ability to speak. And then they're basically a team, and just the way that they're leveling up and developing these skills. And it's a little bit crude language and humor sometimes, but very captivating, I guess. And it's just so fast paced and things are always happening. I'm not going to say that they're better books than anything like Red Rising or Mistborn because they're not better books, but enjoyment level is just, breaking through the roof right now.
I'll be very curious to see kind of where you rank it as far as your top book series.
Yeah, I'm ranking the books in the high 7s, low 8s, but I'm enjoying it more than my ranking reflects, if that makes sense. So,
yeah, it does make sense.
Yeah, like if enjoyment was all I ranked it off of, then it would be at a 10. It's hard to describe it, honestly, but you'll see what I'm talking about. What are you reading right now?
I just finished The Crystal Shard, which was different than I was expecting it to be. The last half of it ended up being really good. The first half, I'm not feeling this. I think the Dark Elf was much better. But then it turned around pretty good and got really, really good, really enjoyable. Drizzt, I felt like wasn't the main character, which threw me off. Where he was one of the main characters, and I guess the story was kind of being funneled through him, but I felt like it wasn't Drizzt's story, which was interesting.
And so is this the book where the group kind of gets together?
Yeah.
Okay. And do you think the second and third books in the trilogy will be more Drizzt perspective focused, or do you think it'll continue this way? It's hard to say.
It's hard to say.
It's hard to say.
Nonetheless, I feel, because especially as they're short, quick reads, that I'll probably do one of these Legend of Drizzt trilogies per year until I finish them all.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough. I want to read Crystal Shard this year too, so we'll get into that as well.
Yeah, but after I finished that, I started Blood Over Brighthaven by M.L. Wong, which I'm already hooked. Like the first 2 chapters are kind of like, wow, we're already got so much going on and so many an unlikable character and a likable character right away. And I've really wanted to get back into it, but it's been hard with a few things going on in my personal life, and playoff hockey just started.
Yeah. Playoff hockey started, playoff basketball started. I'm busy too. But I gotta mention the first chapter in the Blood Over Brighthaven. You're right. It's just so great. It's such a great prologue chapter to what's going on. And then the whole time you're like, how is the story going to tie back into that first chapter?
it really catches you right away. Just I feel I haven't read that much by ML Wong, just the Sword of Kaigen and the start of this book, but I feel like I have so much trust for her just because she's delivered every time I've read her stuff.
Yeah. And knowing that she wrote this after she wrote The Sword of Kaigen, you're like, okay, she has the skills. You know, it's not like this is one of her first books or anything.
I might throw a lot more of her books in my TBR for next year.
Well, cool, man. So let's get into the book breakdown. The Hunger of the Gods by John Gwynne. And I'll just start out with a little synopsis. So, just so you know, before I start, anybody that's listening, this is a sequel in the Bloodsworn saga to The Shadow of the Gods. So this is book 2 in the Bloodsworn saga of the 3 books. And so this is The Hunger of the Gods by John Gwynne. Picks up right after Shadow of the Gods, ramps up everything. More violence, more gods, and higher stakes. The story follows 3 main threads. So there's Orca, who's on a relentless, brutal quest to rescue her kidnapped son, cutting through enemies and uncovering terrifying truths about the god-touched children. Varg, now part of the Bloodsworn, continues his path of vengeance while growing into a true warrior, forming bonds and facing deadly trials along the way. Elvar rises as a fierce leader, navigating political tensions and all-out war as rival factions clash and the return of the old gods looms. As ancient Norse-inspired gods begin to stir and break free, the world edges closer to chaos, loyalties are tested, alliances shift, and the line between human and divine power starts to blur.
Love it. So it was I feel like the first book, The Shadow of the Gods, ended at like a perfect part where it was a cliffhanger, but also wasn't a cliffhanger, so that you just want to jump in right away and get to what's happening next in The Hunger of the Gods.
Yeah. This trilogy is set up so much like a game of chess. The first book was the opening of the game and sets the pieces. And this middle book is basically where the game is played. You know, pieces are being knocked over, pieces are being sacrificed, the board's changing, things are escalating. And then I feel like you get into the third book, Fury of the Gods, and that's like the end game. And it's so much, almost, I want to compare it to Mistborn, the original trilogy of Mistborn, how it's set up, because it is kind of like setting the stage, knocking down the pieces, and kind of in book 2, and then head towards the end game. And then the third book is basically all end game. How is this puzzle coming back together? And in Hunger of the Gods, unique because in this series there's 3 perspectives, and we're still kind of following all 3 people in these books, all these storylines, and finally we start to see them cross paths and can kind of see where it's going, but very fast paced.
Following The Shadow of the Gods, which one of the main 3 perspectives were you like most excited to get into, and which did you follow the most in this book?
Orca is my favorite character. And at the end of Shadow of the Gods, just the brutality that she exhibits at that one little town. I mean, she basically solos a whole little battalion. And so I was excited to see where she was going. She kind of finds some answers at the end of book 1 about her son. And so book 2, I was excited to see where her vengeance was going to take her. It was cool to see Varg kind of form those bonds in the Bloodsworn and start his Bloodsworn journey and find out more about who he is and what he wants. But Orca, definitely. Elvar, I know you like Elvar, so tell me about Elvar's storyline here.
I guess for me, why Elvar's is my favorite is, one, I thought she was a compelling character where she's got kind of like the Daenerys Targaryen before season 8, where she's got a good heart, but is also really tough and can be ruthless. And she's a really strong character. And I think her looking to become the leader of the Battle Grim as a possibility after light spoilers in this series, people, because this is book 2, so we got to kind of talk about what happens in book 1. As Agnar dies in the first book, that the Battle Grim are now leaderless, and she's looking to potentially make that step into leadership, which would be a new thing for her and her personal growth. But I also feel that hers is the main plot in that this is the gods are following her. She is around the main conflict of this, where Varg's is more of a personal journey, and Orca's is kind of the action, where this is the main overarching plot that's going on. And I thought that the gods were really interesting. I loved the Viking fantasy, and the name the Battlegrim was just like super cool to me, and loved following that. And just a lot of characters in her general storyline as well.
Yeah, Elvar's perspective is great because she's the one describing to you and bringing you close to the dynamics of all the gods. And the gods are very captivating in this book and this series. And Elvar achieves the most power throughout the series and is the most consequential, I guess. But you're totally right when you say Orca's storyline brings the violence, brings the all of those awesome fight scenes, but also Varg. I mean, they really all have them. All the storylines have so much great
But they don't
fighting.
all have the name the Skull Splitter, like Orca.
Exactly, exactly. Did you think it was interesting that John Gwynne named it the Bloodsworn Saga when you're saying Elvar is kind of the main plot? Do you think it's weird that he named it the Bloodsworn Saga when she has nothing to do with the Bloodsworn?
She does and she doesn't. Something that's different between the two groups of the Bloodsworn and the Battlegrim is that the Bloodsworn are all god touched, meaning they have blood from the gods in their veins, and so they all have those powers and those abilities. But it also means that for the most part, their people get enslaved if they're figured out to be god touched,
Hmm.
where the Battlegrim are all just regular humans and they will not intentionally go after them, but they will also participate in the enslavement of these god touched people for money. They're a band of mercenaries. And the kind of the change that takes place in Eldar was a kind of the change that needed to happen for their world to become better, and that they're not going to enslave these people because of their blood. But I do think it's more fitting that the name is the Bloodsworn because it's the story of the gods. It's the story of the ones touched by the gods. And really, Eldar's, she's not intentionally an antagonist, but she's like an antagonistic view in this a little bit, but a good person at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. She has her convictions. And, for such a violent book series, these characters have such good emotional journeys and like character development for such a brutal book. Like you'd think it's just action and blood and gore and all these Vikings, this Viking inspired culture, but there's such good character arcs, and it's cool to see how different all three of them are. But one of the reasons I loved Orcas and Vargs was because they had so much more perspective on the god touched because they were god touched, and I loved that part because I'm a sucker for the magical system in this book, and I wanted to know everything I could about the god touched, and they were god touched. So it was cool to see how they experienced these animalistic changes and the power.
I want to add something to what I liked about Eldar's story, and to do so, I kind of have to give away some light spoilers that happen within the first 50 pages of this book. Is the resurrection of Ulfir.
Yeah, I mean he's on the cover. He's coming
Yeah.
back.
So very light spoilers, but so they resurrect Ulfir, the wolf god. I think it's in her first chapter of the book, which that's one of the few criticisms I have of this book, is there wasn't much of debate about just resurrecting another god to fight Leek Rifa. It was just like, well, the dragon's loose. I guess we need another one to fight it. And they decide to put the slave chain around the neck of the wolf god when they resurrect him so that they're able to control him. And for those that don't know, in this book series, they put what's called a thrall collar on the necks of their slaves. And so it basically forces them to obey their masters no matter what, or they basically die. And so they put this on a god, which is a risky business. But in doing so, Eldar is able to control Ulfir, the wolf god, and lead him to fighting Leek Rifa, the dragon god. And I think following the story of having a god enslaved to you and kind of learning about the god's abilities, its histories, and everything like that. I thought Ulfir was a cool character and a cool perspective to have in there. And so getting to the Elvar chapters, I also got Ulfir chapters.
Yeah, exactly. Because Ulfir, he's the man. But it's just also every character. It seems like in this book has such strong convictions, and they have such strong personalities that it makes dialogue fun, and it makes it where every piece of dialogue is so reflective of their personality, and it makes for some good entertaining chapters and dialogue. So the dialogue's not boring. It's entertaining, and the personalities are fun to experience through the book. In this book specifically, which character had the best arc of the three in Hunger of the Gods? Just in the miniature arc of this book. So we've got Orca looking for her son. Then we've got Varg joining the Battlegrim, training, learning about his.
Varg's joining the Bloodsworn training.
What'd I say?
Battlegrim.
Oh yeah, yeah. Varg is getting Bloodsworn training, learning about who he is as in Ulfithnar, right? Ulfithnar.
Yes, he's an Ulfethner.
Yeah. And then we've got Elvar kind of trying to become the leader that she's.
Yeah, she's basically trying to organize an army to combat the Raven Feeders and what they've gathered for their desire to resurrect the gods and but not really resurrect the gods, but have Leek Rifa control the world and kind of have them be at the top and put the humans underneath their boot, basically.
Yeah, so Leekrifa and the Dragonborn are like, okay, yeah, we kind of want it to be a hierarchical society where we want Leekrifa at the top, then we've got the Dragonborn, then we've got the rest of the God-touched, and then the humans will be our slaves, so we'll flip the script on them.
Yeah. And so Eldar is trying to reason with her father to get him to join her, and she's trying to gather basically forces to combat the forces that the Raven Feeders are gathering because they have this whole army that they've scouted and that they're going to go try to basically conquer everywhere.
So you're going to go with Elvar?
I do remember Varg's arc in this one was particularly good as well.
Yeah. Well, fair enough.
But they were all so good. And I think something we didn't touch on was that they did actually add two perspectives into this book with Bior, who betrayed the Battlegrim and led the Raven Feeders to Osgudrith and then killed Agnar when Agnar assumed he was a friend. And so I thought his perspective was interesting, and I glad that he wasn't in there a ton, but enough to know what's going on with this other group and how they're building their army, getting to see Leek Rifa through his eyes and what's going on the other side of this conflict. And then there was the Guthvar perspective where he's just a little weasel shit. And I could not stand his chapters. If it wasn't for his chapters, I probably would have ranked this book higher than I did. I really did not enjoy his perspective. I hated him as a character, which I think was intentional. But you needed him in there at the same time to get the perspective of all the moving pieces at play here.
Yeah, it's very much for the purpose of showing us the other side of the chessboard. But yeah, Guthvar, what a guy. Pretty despicable.
Loves himself, but
yeah. So touching on that though, do you think this book is better or just bigger than the first book, Shadow of the Gods?
I thought very similar for different reasons. I liked just having the main three in the first one. But I do appreciate how much more expansive it became in the second one. I do love kind of adding pieces to the chessboard if we're using your chess analogy. I think Ulfir was a really good addition, and it was written really well in that I was always wondering, how is it that a wolf is going to beat a dragon, even if they're about the same size?
Yeah.
A dragon should win. And even from the other side, they're saying, crap, they resurrected Ulfir. That's a problem. And why is a wolf a problem for a dragon? And so it was kind of cool to see that he was cunning and that he had powers that Leek Rifa didn't. He has the telekinetic abilities that he can communicate with other Wolfrethnar just through his mind. And he can kind of call
mentality.
Yeah. This is a quote from the Jungle Book live action movie. And I could see Ulfir saying this is, the strength of the pack is the wolf, and the strength of the wolf is the pack. That's totally his mentality, and he gathers all the Wolfrethnar to come follow him and join him. And I thought that was really cool. And then we learn later on that he can basically create giant stone wolves to follow him around and be kind of like his squad, which is super cool.
Yeah, very cool. And yeah, just his wolf cunning, his battle strategy, very cool. And you see more of that in book 3. But one of the craziest things in this book is a certain battle between gods. And you hated it because you're like, why
Like,
did
what's the
they,
point?
why they, what's the point? But I liked it. It was good. Rifa, man, we talked about this in the first book. She's just a frightening person, frightening character. I mean, she's, like we talked about last week, the spider goddess Lolth in the Dark Elf. She's right up there in terrifyingness or more terrifying. Good villain. That's why she was in
She's
our
a
villain.
she's a great villain, and really the only thing that could make her a little bit better is if she was a little bit more cunning, where she's just raw rage and violence and
And she's psychotic.
yeah, where she's terrifying, you don't know what she's gonna do, but also she doesn't really have a plan, and that's why they think that Ulfir is a problem for her and for them because he thinks about things, he plans things, and he's got the ruthlessness to him that she has.
Yeah. Well, so this book's right along the lines with quality of the first book, which is saying something because first book was great. But trying to touch back on on something that we were talking about earlier, do you think that the constant action helps or hurts the emotional depth?
I don't know if it really does either because, you don't get too emotionally attached during like like the battle scenes to any of the characters. You
Yeah.
kind of just think like, "Oh, they're cool. I want to follow them."
Yeah.
But I don't think like the action is too much. You get enough of each where every time there's a loss for a character or you see their need for vengeance, you can feel for that person. You can relate to them. You feel like you want the revenge just as much as they do. And then when a character you like dies, you feel the sadness of that loss and the kind of emotional parts that are in this book. But I do think that the action it's good because it makes it not get slow because there needs to be slower parts of this book. And so I feel like when things are slow for Varg, things are usually picking up for Orca or someone else, and then vice versa, so that if one of the arcs is slow, the other arc is going to kind of pace the book.
Yeah. Yeah, well said. I think I've been thinking about this. I think that the brutality and the violence actually is it's a cool way to actually let the characters develop emotionally because so many things can happen in a battle or duels or things like this that can change a person. For example, instead of like a book like an adventure story that's like exclusively adventure and just like a couple of actions along the way where like The Hobbit, for example, where you see this change in Bilbo Baggins not quickly, but over time you can look at the end of the book and the beginning of the book and be like, oh wow, he's changed. But with such brutality and violence in the Bloodsworn saga, you can see that emotional catalyst of the battle or the violence can really change the way that characters view the world or continue on in their journey. I don't know if that makes sense, but I think that the violence is a good catalyst for emotional change at the same time and to help you feel things because that it's such an elevated adrenaline rush of what's happening that it's transformative. It can be transformative if the author does it right. And John Gwynne is so good at that.
Yeah, I agree, and I feel that having a not violent, constant action going on makes the stakes feel a little bit higher.
Yeah.
But before we start getting into what we ranked this book, I just have like 2 or 3 questions for you. First is, what do you think is the biggest strength or the best part of this book?
I think it subverted my expectations and what was going to happen. Kind of like the part you don't like, kind of like the battle that goes on between gods in the book. It doesn't end how you think it's going to end. My favorite part was the interactions with Ulfrir, the god, because you see the trilogy, you buy the trilogy, you see these books, you see there's a dragon on the front of the first book. Cool, I'm going to see a dragon or read about a dragon. In the second book, there's a massive wolf on the cover. I'll probably see a massive wolf, and he's the main focus point of this book, and he's worth it. He's very cool. Just like you were quoting, you said that what was that quote from?
The Jungle
From
Book.
Jungle Book. I thought it was actually from this book after you said it. But yeah, he just has such personality, quotable lines. He's kind of like comes off as like this grumpy guy at first, but then you could start to see his mind and his heart and seeing Orca's emotion, trying to go get her son. There's just so much about this book, but I'd have to say Ulfrir. I think the gods are the payoff, you know? the
Yeah.
lore.
Another god we haven't even gotten into was Rota, the rat god.
I know. I was gonna say because Bior is has god blood and it's Rota's blood, right? Did you ever end up liking Bior by the end of the series?
I felt that Bior was understandable in his goals and his ambitions. I don't think he was evil. He wasn't like Guthvar, where he was just totally useless weasel shite. Um, he he had a role to play, and I felt like his perspective, you could see kind of the honor that was in his intentions and what he was trying to do, and he wasn't a selfish person, and he did feel guilt for the things that he did wrong. But yeah, being in Bior's chapters and getting to see Rota, and he was an interesting god in his own way. He didn't have the power, the mystique, the aura that the others have, but he's a survivor and managed to create a foot place for himself in this new world. But I thought it was crazy how Ulfir tortured him by chaining him up and blood eagled him with snake venom pouring onto him like once an hour for thousands of years.
And that was actually part of Norse mythology.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Although one of the things in there are actually Norse mythology, which I had come to figure out. Crazy, cool stuff.
Yeah. About Bior, actually, I guess we could talk about this more in the third book, but I really like how him and Elvar are kind of opposing storylines and journeys. Elvar, feels a certain way about the slavery of Bloodsworn, or I mean, the slavery of God-blooded, and Bior feels a certain way about it. And so those are the kind of the motivators of how they start, and then they go off and with those motivations, and Elvar, even though she's the good guy, is kind of wrong, and Bior, in the way he sees it, is kind of right. He doesn't want god-blooded people to be enslaved, and then to see how he sees that the people fighting for this are actually have worse intentions and are maybe bad, and then Elvar's like, maybe I'm wrong in the end, and then how they kind of come back together and to have to find common ground. And cool. It's cool the way that he did that. I think John Gwynne is just he's so good at everything he does.
Yeah. No, like I said at the beginning, I thought Elvar, even though she's a good character and I think a good person, she's kind of an antagonistic role in there where they could still be good people, but have a wrong understanding or wrong belief about something. But because of the way they're conditioned and what they believe, they might do things that are inherently wrong and believe things that are inherently wrong. But I think that as she grows in the series, she sees that there needs to be a change that needs to be made, and it kind of has to make that tough decision where, okay, if I take the slave collar off all of these god touched, are they going to stay or are they going to leave? If I take the slave collar off Ulfir, he might be happy or he might just eat me. There's a lot of risk involved in that, and she needs her army to combat what's coming.
Yes. Yes. So, do you have any more questions for me?
I guess I've talked about my criticisms of this. Do you have any criticisms of the book?
So, just going back to that battle that we've talked about. So, it's a battle between, do we want to say?
I don't think we should say
Yeah.
there's a battle between Leek Rifa and another god at the end of this book. We want to leave who this god is as a surprise for those that maybe not have read it yet. But those that have read it, the battle we're talking about at the very end of this book between two gods in the sky.
It's so, like you said, like, what was the point? But then you see that is some extra motivation right there for Ulfrir.
Oh,
So,
and they add a point to it at the in theory of the gods.
yeah, no, that would be my critique, is maybe a little more purpose to it. It's kind of just tragic, but also the way it happens and the result of it. One of those things, like, even if it's not how the reader wanted something to end. Yeah, but I didn't really hear you give much critiques. I've heard you in the past, but not today.
No,
What are your
so there's three main criticisms I have is there's that build up to that fight at the very end, and you're kind of like, well, what was the point? And my second critique is also a pretty minor one, but I feel also needs to be critiqued is the gods are dead for a reason. God touched are enslaved for a reason. If the people here don't want the gods on their planet again, I feel they just chose way too quickly to resurrect Ulfir. There was no debate. It was like a page and a half of decision making to, yep, well, Leek Reef is loose. I guess we need someone. Ulfir's body's here. I guess we'll just resurrect him.
To
And
touch on that, just to touch on that, just a second. Looking back, though, you can see the motivations. You can see, okay, there's kind of nobody in charge here. The Battlegrim's leader just got killed. There's nobody really in charge. Elvar is kind of feeling probably guilty that it's basically because of the Battlegrim that Leek Rifa was even released, because they led them right there over that rainbow bridge. And I mean, yes, it was Bior that betrayed them, but I mean, she also was probably feeling guilty that she couldn't see through Bior as well, and felt maybe that she was blinded by her feelings. And so she was feeling guilty. In my opinion, she's looking for the quickest and best solution. And she's like, I'm going to resurrect Ulfir. And then she goes for it.
well, and it was the correct decision. And I think she could have came to that, but I feel like she needed a chapter to just say, like, okay, we need to think about this and talk about this. Maybe have her go for a walk and have her debate with Gren and just kind of talk it over with him. This is what I'm thinking. What do you think? Am I crazy to do this? And then,
good point.
So I just felt like there needed to be a little bit more there, but that's a pretty minor critique. My biggest critique, and why I think is dropped my score a pretty good amount, and why I'd be willing to raise what I ranked it up quite a bit, was the Guthvar chapters. I get it. He's intentionally written so that we hate him. And I get that we needed his perspective. We just got so many of his chapters. He might have had more than Elvar. He was in there quite a bit. And I get we needed to have him in there. I get he's intentionally frustrating for us to hate him. But man, was he in there a lot. And so I'd be loving my Varg chapter, love my Orca chapter. Then all of a sudden it's Guthvar. And then I love another chapter, and then Guthvar again. And then, with Soa Bior in there. And it's like, I haven't heard from Elvar in like 10 chapters. Why are we on this Guthvar guy that we hate? So that's my biggest complaint. It was not that he was in there, but he was just in there too much. And so there's like 20% of the book where I'm just not vibing with it.
The interesting part about this book is kind of the only slow parts in the book are those chapters. And all the other storylines are pretty much go, go, go. It is fast paced. This whole book is kind of a race to the end of this book, and a lot changes. The field changes.
And you just keep wanting him to die, and he comes close so many times, but then just doesn't.
You always answer this question so well before we get to the book breakdown, or sorry, the book rating. You always answer this question well. Who's this book for? Give me a 1-minute elevator pitch on why to read this book.
Who is this book for? Since it's the second book, anyone that has read the first book should absolutely read the second book. But I do feel that if you have any interest in Norse mythology, Vikings, or a good, fast-paced, action-packed series, this is definitely for you. I do think that pretty much anyone can enjoy this if they're mentally prepared to go into it. It's not your comfort book that you're reading for fun. It's not the Harry Potter feel good. It is dark and gloomy revenge. It's riddled with revenge and violence and blood. And it is so entertaining. It is so fun. And it is fast paced. And you just want to go to war right after.
That's great.
You don't have a chai tea while reading this book. You have a white monster while reading this book.
Let's see it.
That's why I got this here. But yeah, that's my 1-minute elevator pitch. I think anyone can enjoy it, but you just got to have the right mindset going into it and know what you're going into. But not
You've got your white monster at 7 p.m. That's awesome. That was great. See, you always do so good. I think it really keeps the people going. Gets the people going. Microphone.
All right. So I think that brings us to Carter. What did you rate this book?
I think I rated it too high, but I loved it. I rated it at a 9.5. I think it's the best book in the series of the three.
Really?
I think of the three, it was my favorite book.
Theory of the Gods was definitely my favorite.
Yeah, it was a great conclusion. But I mean, it was very barely. Like I rated the first book 9.4, this one 9.5, and the third book 9.4. So I mean, right there. But I'm obviously willing to go down as we've established more of a, maybe I want to say, a compromising scale or an accurate protagonist scale. Goodreads has this book at a 9. Goodreads is always pretty generous with scores, and I usually don't beat the Goodreads score, to be honest. So unique.
So I ranked it pretty low. I rated this at an 8.2.
8.2. Yeah, so a big spread between us here. I thought something that might help us kind of accelerate the compromising process would be to look at what we ranked Shadow of the Gods, which was at an 8.5. And another ranking around here where I think we're going to land around is Well of Ascension, which was the second book in a trilogy, which we ranked at 8.6.
Well, this is definitely better than Well of Ascension. As we were talking and as I was remembering this book and all the things, I knew I rated this book probably a little too low, and I think it was really the Guthvar chapters that got to me. I thought it was just a little too much of him, and I knew that I probably needed to raise this. For me, I'm between like an 8.8 and an 8.9. I don't think it's quite a Protagonist 9.0, but I think it's right up there, 8.8, 8.9, where this is one of the better books that we've reviewed.
Yeah. Hey, I think we're both coming together here. I was actually going to say it needed to be around an 8.7 even. So I like the 8.8.
8.8 sounds good.
I like it. We ranked Shadow of the Gods 8.5, so I think a 0.3 jump is pretty accurate here. And I think that's a good score for people to look at. So you liked the third book a little bit better. So we'll talk about that when we get to it. I like that book a lot too. Something that you said at the end of that book though was at Fury of the Gods was, I wish there was more because there was so much lore that we didn't get to learn. And we can talk about that when it comes to it. But you want to say our score?
Sure. And from some recent comments that we've gotten on our Instagram, this is not exactly a rating of how good the book is. This is a rating of how much we like the book, twisted in with how good it is. But you can make an argument that some are maybe better written than others, but for pure enjoyment, entertainment, and the quality of it is how we do our Protagonist score, mostly on how much we like it. And the official Protagonist ranking for The Hunger of the Gods by John Gwynne is 8.8.
8.8. That's the score. That's the score. I like
Did
it.
you have anything you wanted to add to what I just said?
Not at all. No, I was just going to say, yeah, it is how much we enjoyed it. We try to take in lots of things, how well it's written, all that, the prose, the tropes, how well everything was executed, the pacing, all of it. So we try to do that. But yeah, essentially it's how much we enjoyed it, how much we think you'll enjoy it. That gets us to the IQ test, Mason. I think that you've prepared me one. And it is ready for me, right?
So, Protagonist Nation, it's a reminder, this is how the Protagonist IQ test works. Average IQ in the United States, which is where Carter and I reside, is 98. So we're going to start at 95. Give us a realistic expectation of where our IQ might be a little below average. And then we will do a series of questions, 10 questions. And for each question Carter gets correct, it will be a +5. For every question that gets wrong, it's a -5. And there's one 10-point extra credit question at the end that he probably won't get right because it's just going to be a random question I ask. And
hey, Mason, question for you. Have you ever done an IQ test?
I haven't.
Me neither.
I don't know if I want to know. It's like, hey guys, your dentist has an IQ of 30.
Actually, I have done the app ones, but they're not official. I think you have to do an official one, so who knows? But hopefully we're above 98. I think I want to be cocky and say yes.
Maybe. We'll see. All right, let's get into the Protagonist IQ test, the more important of the IQ test. Okay, first question. We're going to start off pretty easy.
What's the theme?
It's just going to be questions from the first two books of the Bloodsworn trilogy.
Okay.
Okay.
Ready.
What is the name of the world in the Bloodsworn trilogy?
My gosh. I want to say Yggdrasil, but that's just the name of the tree, right?
What'd you say?
I was going to say Yggdrasil or something like that, but that's the name of the tree. Is it really?
It's close in name.
Oh, that's tough. That's tough. It's actually super easy. I just don't have a physical copy, so I've never been able to study the map.
No, they actually don't. I don't know if they ever really said the name of the planet of like the world, but so this is a hard
one. Let me think. I think I can. So it's close. Does it end with Sil? No? Can you say no?
All right, that's a -5. Vigrid.
What? Okay. Well, what was it?
Vigrid.
Vigrid. Okay. All right.
All right. You should get this one. What is the name of Orca's husband?
Thorkel.
Who says this quote? A name means nothing if your actions don't back it.
I want to say Glornir.
Correct answer is Elvar.
Elvar. Wow. Okay.
What is the name of the father of the gods?
Snaka, the snake god.
Well, I can't use the follow-up question of what is his animal, but
Oh, double points.
well, we
Your
got to
turn.
do a different question. All right,
What?
what is the name of Ulfir's? I believe it's his wife or his partner. I don't know if they were actually married or not, but his significant other.
I like how in his hideout he's made her a special entrance into the hideout on the top for her to fly into. Very romantic. They seem like they had a very very romantic past. But this is the eagle goddess.
Doing good. All right, this is the last of like the really easy ones.
What?
Who are the main three protagonists in Shadow of the Gods?
Thanks. We've only said their name 20 times each in the first book breakdown. So we've got Orca, Varg, and
Okay.
Elvar.
Perfect. You're doing so good.
You're about to come at me with like the hardest questions possible. What was the name of the world? Vigrid?
Okay, a lot of these are going to be quote questions.
All right. You're the game maker.
You should be able to get them off of context. You don't survive in this world from being soft.
That's got to be Orca.
That is correct.
That's got to be Orca talking to her son.
Next quote. I just want to belong somewhere.
That has got to be Varg.
That is Varg.
All right. Like I was saying earlier, their personalities come out in their dialogues in every sentence.
What is the name of the location of the ash tree that they go to at the end of Shadow of the Gods and are still currently there in the beginning of Hunger of the Gods?
Gosh, what is it called? I might as well just give up now because I don't think I'll be able to remember what it's called. Yeah, I don't know. What's it called?
Osgudreth.
That's a hard word. I don't even feel bad. Osgudreth. Osgudreth.
What is the name of the man who kidnapped Orca's son?
This guy, she gets revenge on this guy, I think. What is his name, though? He's a bad guy. He's not the Golderman. He's a dragon. He's dragonborn. What is his name?
It's really similar to the son's name, Dreka.
It's Dreka. Dreka. Okay. That's okay.
All right.
I forget names.
All right. Let's see how well you know me.
Is this the bonus question?
Yeah. What type of god touched would I be?
You'd be a berserker.
Wow, you got it really quick.
That's why I got you Glornir's shirt.
I thought it was because you just wanted what's her name shirt? Orcas.
No, it's because you'd be a berserker. It's your gym bod goals.
No, I'm not smart enough to be Wolfwithner.
That was an easy bonus question.
You might have set a record.
What do we got?
You have a Protagonist IQ for these two books of 118.
118. I think that's the highest score ever on the Protagonist's IQ test. I did have some trouble with the names. The names always get me. That was fun. Now, another game, a little more interactive. Guess Who? And this is the whole series, or should we just do the first two books?
We could do the whole series.
Okay. So I'm going to write down, we'll do 2 out of 3 like we did with our past one. And I'm going to write down my first name here. We know that you're a cheater, pants on fire, Guess Who player, but we're going to
You're cheater. You use the same character twice in a row.
We're going to overcome.
Okay, I'm ready with my first one. Since you're the reigning winner, you get to start.
Easiest first question here. Does your character have god blood?
No. Is your character a woman?
Yes. Is your character in the Battle Grim?
No. Is your character Bloodsworn?
No. Does your character live in the Skull of Snaka?
No. Does your character have god blood?
Yes. Your character woman?
Does your character have a pretty badass nickname like the Skull Splitter?
No. Is your character Guthvar? Yes. My character was Skuld.
I wouldn't have gotten it. I did have one more chance, but I wouldn't have gotten it.
She had god blood. If she was, she's pretty cool. Your turn to start.
Sorry, I'm just looking something. I'm looking something up in regards to my character.
Yeah, you're looking up what's the most obscure character in the Bloodsworn saga.
Yours was way more obscure than mine was.
Mine's a main character, kind of. I mean, not a main character, but not like...
It's a secondary character. Mine had their own chapters. All right.
That's true. Now you're going to go for revenge.
All right. Is yours tainted? or god touch?
Yes. Is yours in the Bloodsworn?
Yes. Is yours in the Bloodsworn?
Yes.
Okay.
Is yours Svick?
No. Is yours male?
Yes. Is yours Bjarn?
No. Is yours Einar?
Is yours Glornir?
No. Now I gotta look at. Is yours Berserkir?
No. Is yours Varg's girlfriend? Forget it. What's her name again?
I forget.
Okay.
Yours Svik? I think you have one chance.
Yeah. Is yours Sulich?
Nope. Mine was Einar.
Einar. You had Einar. Nice. All right. Tiebreaker.
Sharpie. Okay. Jive turkey, I'm ready for you.
All right. Is yours in the Bloodsworn?
No. Is yours your favorite character?
No. Ha. Almost. Almost. This close. Is yours at any point considered a bad guy or girl?
Not in particular. Good is a matter of perspective, Anakin. Is yours Wulfethnar?
Yes. Is yours Elvar?
Is yours Varg?
Nope. It was Rokia, Varg's girlfriend.
Okay, Rakia.
Rakia. My bad. I can't pronounce it.
You've won the past two.
But you won the first two. Something like that. All right. Your answer to the previous question gave it away. Not particularly when I said considered a bad guy. Okay, well, that was fun. Champion once again at the Guess Who game. And it didn't seem like either of us cheated in that one.
No, not today.
I was trying to throw you off in the second round to make you think I forgot Rakia's name. Did not work. Well, maybe.
You guessed in like 3, so.
Okay, well, that brings us to our Watchtower review, which is us telling you about Viking related television shows that you should watch. And I'm going to let you kick it off, Mason.
All right, I got to start with this one because I made you watch it and we both really enjoyed it. The Last Kingdom, which is on Netflix, was a very good TV show. And what's even better is it's a book series called The Saxon Stories. I've actually read one of the books so far this year and plan to read the next 2. And there's several books in the series. And I would say the TV show so far has accurately followed the books pretty good. But the TV show was great. Uhtred, son of Uhtred, was a good main character where he was entertaining. He was badass. And I like how in the beginning of the show, he kind of starts off as a jerk and then grows and matures as he becomes older and more wise as a soldier. And what it's about is when all the kingdoms of England are divided into Northumbria, Mercia, Wessex, and Wales has their own thing going on. And so all the English kingdoms are divided, and the Vikings come from Denmark and start taking over the land one kingdom at a time until there's the last kingdom, Wessex, and kind of their confrontation with the Vikings at this time. And Uhtred, the main character, Saxon, where he's from Northumbria, and he is an elderman, so he's a lord there, and he's captured by the Vikings when he's like 10 years old and raised as a Dane in Northumbria. And so he kind of has like a good mix and good perspective on both of them because he grows to love his captors eventually, and but he still feels like loyal to his people. And so that's kind of a cool setting for the story. And I loved the series, 5 seasons and a movie. Super entertaining, good episodes, overall good acting. And I know you liked it.
I haven't watched as many Viking shows as you. I mean, maybe 2. I think you're going to have some more to contribute to this. But Vikings, I mean, and just that whole time period, there's a reason that Viking and Norse mythology is so often tied into fantasy. It feels magical, even though it's not. And at the risk of turning this into a solo The Last Kingdom segment, The Last Kingdom is amazing. I think it's my favorite show to date. And there's so many good shows out there, but this show, it nails the balance between history and entertainment. And I knew nothing really about the broad strokes about the formation of England, and seeing it at its inception and to see all the unlikelihoods that had to happen. I know this is historical fiction, but there's history to be learned in it. To see everything that had to happen for England for Britain and it to become a thing is crazy. And the Vikings, the Danes are, depending on where you are portrayed as such villains or such anti-heroes in different cultures. And they're very much the villains to the Saxons, and but then you get on their perspective and you see things from their perspective, and it's cool to see both sides of it during this series, and even more so actually in the Vikings of Valhalla. You've seen both the Vikings of Valhalla and Vikings, right?
Yeah. I haven't finished the original Vikings series yet. I'm about halfway through it.
Valhalla is the sequel, right?
Valhalla is the sequel, but you definitely don't need to watch the original Vikings to watch Vikings Valhalla.
I'm on the second season of Vikings of Valhalla. It's good. I like it. But still is not scratching the itch of The Last Kingdom. The Last Kingdom is awesome, man. Uhtred, son of Uhtred, is just a top tier character. And doesn't it feel like there's no magic or fantasy going on, but doesn't it feel magical a little bit?
There's extremely light fantasy aspects to it. It does feel fantasy 'cause I think most fantasies are done kind of in that medieval era of swords and shields that the Vikings had.
The Shield Wall, very cool show. I need to rewatch it again. You watched the movie, right?
We watched it together. I don't know if you remember that.
Did we watch it in
Yeah, at your
what?
place in Oregon.
Yeah, that's right. That's crazy.
I think the show, I've had a lot of friends watch the show. I've convinced them to watch it. They've all loved it. But I've heard mixed reviews about if they liked the movie or not. I personally really liked it and thought it was a good conclusion for it, like the formation of England.
It was good. And then to see him kind of, go back home. But The Last Kingdom is my number one recommend when it comes to Viking inspired. And you just said that too. I mean, it's the one you let off with.
It's the
I
one I
think we
let
get
off with. This might be a hot take, and I know you're gonna disagree with it. I actually prefer Vikings Valhalla.
really
I do.
because of that more action.
I think just because it's newer, that
Hmm.
I feel the acting is a little bit better, and I do feel like all the special effects and kind of like all the cinema around it is slightly better.
You like Leif Erikson.
I like Leif Erikson. I like Harald Sigurdsson. Even Freydis Erdingsdottir is a good character. Something I didn't love about the Last Kingdom is I thought the villains progressively got worse and worse. Where by season 5, the main bad guy is Brita, and you're just like, what happened to like Ubba and
Yeah, good point.
Uthvar?
Good point. I think it's just that the actor that played Uhtred and Uhtred, as a character, just carried it so much for me. And there was something so addicting about him, that actor, the way that he portrays Uhtred, the way he speaks, his accent is so fun to listen to. He's a German trying to have a Viking Saxon accent, and it's so unique. I thought the action was good, and I liked the history lesson in it.
I'll just talk about Vikings Valhalla a little bit then and why I like it. And to give people kind of the premise of it, it is the sequel series to Vikings, which is the story of Ragnar Lothbrok and his sons. This takes place 200 years later when the Vikings have made a home in England and have been given or been gifted by the King of England lands for them to farm, and they're able to live and be peaceful there. And by this point, they've all kind of lost their main language. But people would send their children from all over the Viking world, from Norway, from Denmark, to go live there. And there's like hundreds and thousands of Vikings living on this land. And out of nowhere, King Ethelred decides to exterminate the Vikings from England land, and really was a genocide of the people, and very few got away and lived. And so they scourged the Viking plague, as they called it. And at this time, King Canute the Great calls all Viking nations to meet together and Viking peoples to meet together in Kattegat in Norway to form an army of revenge. And that's kind of where we start off, where I'm hooked already. And all these figures existed in history, and I wouldn't say these are incredibly historically accurate, but that event did happen. The English did basically perform genocide on the Vikings that were in England at the time. King Canute did gather the other Viking nations to him to go on a revenge conquest of England. And they did conquer London, and he was King of England, and Canute became King of England for some time. And Harald Sigurdsson was another main character that takes place around the same time. His story is really compelling in the show, where he's feeling destined to be king of Norway and kind of his quest for that. Ferrickson, who's actually born years after this, but is included in this, I think just for the fun of it. was cool to kind of have in there, and it was a good character. And what it's now been kind of hinting towards is they want Leif Erikson to kind of go be more of an adventurer than the warrior that he was in the season 1 and 2, and the hints towards his future discovery of America or the Americas. And there's pretty substantial historical evidence that he did at one point discover the Americas before Christopher Columbus came over and all that. So
Well, we know that he was a good enough, boat captain to get there.
yeah. And so that's kind of the setting that takes place in Vikings Valhalla. So I think it's a cool setting to start with. And I think the characters are very, very compelling. We do get more of a perspective on like a female Viking. And something I didn't know until watching the show was that the women would go by daughter, like Freydis Erik's daughter. Or, I thought that was kind of cool because we always just know like the sons, like Peter's son, Eric's son. And so that was a cool thing to see, and getting to see more of the Viking culture, I thought was really good. And there's a quote that I really liked in season 2 that I think is like it's like a really good tone for the series, and it's from Harald Sigurdsson, the wannabe king of Norway. And he says, "Killing a man in chains is easy. Fighting a man, that takes courage." And I thought that was a good one. And
That's it.
I think the action in it is fantastic. Right now, there are 3 seasons made. I think it's gonna end at the end of season 4, but I, like you, enjoy the history lessons and seeing, like, a generalized synopsis of what happened during that time. The characters were good. Like, I thought King Canute was fantastic. I thought Harold Sigurdsson and Leif Erikson were fantastic. Queen Elfivu and Queen Emma were good. Freydis was great. Like, there isn't anything, like, I dislike about the show. Like, I don't have any complaints about it at all.
And it doesn't have the problem of falling off a little bit slightly.
I don't think so. I
I haven't seen it, so I'm asking.
don't think so. I think they're trying to keep the villains pretty historically accurate. In Uhtred's story in The Last Kingdom, I feel like Uhtred's, I believe, a fictional character that they're just using to funnel in here.
Yeah, I'm not sure
And so I
actually.
don't know like how accurate like the bad guys are, but it did feel like they got progressively less substantial. And because Uhtred's a fictional character, it's kind of hard to put him in all these historical events. But Vikings Valhalla has more perspectives than just the Uhtred one.
The only thing in the Vikings of Valhalla I'm not enjoying is like Frida Eric's daughter, her like spiritual journey. I find it boring.
Yeah, it's her season 1 for her, like the first like 6 episodes of season 1 for her are rather boring, but it picks up, it gets better.
Gotcha. Yeah, well, those are the 2 I've seen, and the 2 probably that I'd recommend. Have you seen any others?
I just like the only one I'd also bring up is the original Viking show with Ragnar Lothbrok, where it is good. It just doesn't quite scratch the itch for me, where I feel like it's a little bit more eccentric, where Ragnar Lothbrok isn't the Viking you'd expect him to be. He's just kind of odd. It's just kind of an odd show where they took like the most eccentric parts of the Vikings and kind of made that the theme. But I feel like the Vikings Valhalla and uh the Last Kingdom kind of takes like the coolest, most badass parts about the Vikings and makes that like the center focus.
Yeah, I'm excited to finish Vikings Valhalla. I don't know if I watch Vikings. If I like Vikings Valhalla, I'll watch Vikings. But The Last Kingdom is just so memorable for me, and I love the dialogue. It's well done. I think the dialogue is better in The Last Kingdom, in my opinion, from what I've seen. I've only seen a season, so I'll have a better opinion later. The Last Kingdom to recommend. Anything else to
Yeah.
say?
So just to summarize the 3 shows that we recommend, most highly rated is probably The Last Kingdom on Netflix, Vikings Valhalla, which is also on Netflix. And I believe and Vikings is kind of like a third option for us if you're really just into it and want to continue watching more shows. It's also pretty good, but not as good as the others in our opinion. And I think you could find that on multiple streaming services. And that will bring us to our Watchtower review.
You didn't even say Uhtred, son of Uhtred in your voice once.
I am Uhtred, son of Uhtred. Destiny is all.
I think the magical part of that series is the destiny aspect of it all. It just seems like he's being screwed over and over again, and it all kind of ends up working for his benefit in the end. But anyway, yeah, that brings us to a segment that is a fan favorite, hopefully. The Weapon of Wisdom. I have a little Weapon of Wisdom prepared for you guys. This segment is sponsored by Moe's Seafood and Chowder on the Oregon coast, serving you famous clam chowder for the past 80 years. As As I'd like to do, I've chosen a quote from the book we talked about today, The Hunger of the Gods by John Gwynne. It goes like this: "Strength is not in the arm that swings the blade, but in the will that refuses to break." So there's a good Viking quote for you. I like it because it's kind of like in the real world, where in lots of different aspects, in where consistency beats bursts of effort, fitness, discipline beats out talent, and just in life overall, how resilience overcomes circumstances. And it's not the tools that you have in life, but your will and your convictions and how hard you work. You're dealt a certain hand in life, and you can overcome anything through your own will. And it's not about your physical power. It's about the strength of your soul. And in The Hunger of the Gods, it is talking literally about sword fighting and your sword not being what's important, but the will of the wielder. And John Gwynne, his world is brutal. Everyone can fight, but not everyone can keep going when they've lost everything. And that's the real separator, in a warrior. And we want to be the warrior in life that keeps going and overcomes, I guess, life and the natural man, you could say. But yeah, the strength is not in the arm that swings the blade, but in the will that refuses to break. It really speaks for itself. So that's my weapon of wisdom.
Well spoke. Well,
Wow.
Protagonist Nation, that brings us to the end of our episode today. Just to recap everything we did a really fun protagonist book breakdown of The Hunger of the Gods by John Gwynne. Excellent read. I really encourage everyone to read this series. We gave it a protagonist ranking of 8.8, well deserved. And then we moved on to some games. We did a protagonist IQ test and a game of Guess Who, where Carter did beat me this time without cheating. And we did a Watchtower review where we discussed some of our favorite Vikings TV shows. To wrap us off today, Carter gave an awesome weapon of wisdom with a great quote from The Hunger of the Gods. And I would encourage you to go back and listen to that. And that brings us to the end. So thank you for being here with us. Please like and subscribe and turn on the notifications to be tuned into our episodes. Follow us on Instagram and see all the reels that we post. Thank you for being here. We love you, Brotagonists.
See you next week. Tune in.